There we go. And as Dawn said, my name's Ginger Dewey. I work for ReadSpeaker. And if I look away, please disregard that because I've got my presentation on a secondary screen and I'm not good at looking at one and seeing the presentation at the same time. First off, we're going to introduce the panel. We're going to talk about some benefits of text-to-speech, UDL, have a panel discussion, and then a demo and Q&A. Kathy Wood, as I mentioned a minute ago, will be joining us. Dr. George Hanshaw is with us today, and Don from Moodle is with us.
Yeah, I
First
had
off,
a last second.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say it was the last second. Kelly Dempsey, our account manager, was unable to make it, so I'm filling in. My name is Don Hazelwood. I'm the head of sales and marketing here at Moodle US.
Thank you. What is ReadSpeaker? Well, first off, ReadSpeaker is more than just text to speech. We have a lot of accessibility tools. We've got over 20 years of experience. We're used by over 1,500 institutions globally. We are for everyone, not just someone who has accommodations, and we're very easy to implement. When we look at some of the benefits, you see that there are three things on the screen: engagement, accessibility, and convenience. Well, first off, every learner has a way that best fits them for learning. For me, I have to see it and do it and hear it afterwards. Other people have to hear it first, like my daughter. She has to hear it to be able to do it. Then there are others that might prefer reading it. So the universal design for learning allows us to choose the way we receive things. With engagement, we're talking about comprehension, online learners, UDL, bimodal presentations, PTSD. Accessibility, 20% of the population has limited literacy skills, visual impairments, learning disability, dyslexia, and are foreign born. Convenience, we're mobile, usability, learning on the go, busy adults and part-time learners who have to multitask, and personal preference. Kathy and I have a very favorite slide, and it is this one, because Abraham Lincoln was an advocate for UDL back before UDL had a name. And he once said, "When I read aloud, two senses catch the idea. First, I see what I read. Second, I hear it, and therefore I can remember it." And when you stop and think about that, that's bimodal learning, and it's also being a proponent of UDL, which is receiving it the way he needed it. Now, the universal design for learning, it's not just this grand title. It's based on scientific insights, providing equal opportunity. It works for everyone, and it meets individual needs. On the screen, we have two cartoons, and one of them, there's the one on the left, the man is saying, "For a fair selection, everyone has to take the same exam. Please climb the tree." Well, I'm not certain, but I sure don't think the fish and the elephant and the dog can climb the tree. Now, some dogs might be able to run up that tree when they get a head start, but I don't think the others can. And because of that, it's saying that everybody's got to do the same thing the same way. And that's not how life works. You might need a different accommodation to prove the same thing. The cartoon on the right has a guy shoveling snow. And the man in the wheelchair says, "If you shovel the ramp, we can all get in." And that's what accessibility is about. If you provide the accessibility, then everyone can participate. Okay, Dr. Hanshaw, tell us how your institution came to utilizing ReadSpeaker and why. And I'm going to stop my PowerPoint so that you can be seen.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're still showing your screen.
Oh, geez, sorry.
which is fine with me, but I don't know if you want to see your screen.
No, I didn't. I clicked the wrong thing. Apologize.
You know, we came to using ReadSpeaker for multiple reasons, but what it does is people talk about access, they talk about equity, and they talk about all these big words, and we had to define what it means to do something about it, because ReadSpeaker for us, when we put in our Moodle platform, was freedom. I mean, it opened up the world for multiple people, because as your cartoon stated, when there's multiple pathways for that information to come in, we're simply better. So we came to ReadSpeaker because we needed to lift everyone up. And what does that mean? That means we needed to create these multiple pathways so adults could get the information the way they wanted to. And that's a big deal, because that's part of adult learning theory as well, right? Being able to access things how you prefer. It's a preference. And when we connected with ReadSpeaker and saw all that you did, that's why we went with what you had. So I'd actually be interested to, from the audience, if you could type in the chat, what's your perspective on making everything completely accessible for your students, in like 1 or 2 words, how would you define that? We defined it as the typical phrase of the rising tide raises all ships. And that's why we went and researched and then found ReadSpeaker and started utilizing it in Moodle. So that's it. That's probably the long version that you wanted to hear. So if anyone wants to type into the chat, let me know what their definition is for that, if they would like to. But that's what we did for Moodle at Los Angeles Pacific University, because we wanted to make sure that everyone has access to it. And it does. And it makes it better for everyone.
We had one question, and it says, is it possible to use ReadSpeaker also to translate the text? The translation feature in ReadSpeaker is not a translation, so to speak. It uses Google Translate, which does translate word by word or phrase by phrase. But if you do complete sentences, paragraphs, pages, you're going to get what I call a broken translation, as in the words in the sentence may not be in the correct order for the second language that you're translating to.
And can I add to that? Because the translation piece is kind of important, because language is hugely contextual, right? We're deriving meaning from the words and the placement of the words. And when you can translate to your native language, even if it's just a few words, you tend to grab more of that context. And when you have that context, it sticks. We learn from that more than just the word itself. So that's been a big, it's been a big deal for us. I'll just say it like that, because it's helped to contextualize. And when the students can contextualize in their native language, it really helps it stick. And now they can apply what they're learning better. So it's been a very cool process to go through.
And I see Kathy Wood is now online. Kathy, do you want to add anything to translation? Is your computer up and running yet? She is sitting in her car. She is traveling back from seeing her son, who's being deployed tomorrow morning. So, yep. Kathy?
Yeah, so George, I can't stress enough what you just said. I mean, I think you really put it into good perspective right there. You know, ReadSpeaker believes in that ability, you know, for all language learners, you know, that opportunity for that accessibility. So, I mean, I don't think I could have put it any better. And again, everyone, this is real life right here. So apologies that I am sitting in a car at Starbucks, but it was very important for me to see my son off before he travels into a very dangerous situation. So I think you all could appreciate that. So Ginger, thank you for taking over and getting this started. And I think, are we ready to move on to the next question, Ginger? I wasn't sure exactly where I fell into the mix.
Yes, we are, unless someone else has another question on this. Anyone? Okay. Whoops. I've got to share before I can show you the PowerPoint again. Come on. There we go. Let me get everything else off that screen. And George, who do you think benefits from using ReadSpeaker? Is it a select group? Is it more than that? Have you found at LA Pacific that is using ReadSpeaker?
You know, I'm going to go back to the rising tide lifts all ships, or, you know, the shoveling of the snow in the cartoon that you showed. It helps everyone, because the more pathways that data, that information can come into, whether it's a different language like we were just talking about, or, you know, if it reads it out to me, or if it just explains what a graphic is. I love that feature where it can take my PDF that is 100% inaccessible and then, you know, make something of it. It helps every single person there, because you can download, I don't want to get too into the weeds, but you can download your modules on MP3s and play them while you're in a car if you want to, you know, because we all commute. And it's getting back to commuting as well. But it's powerful because it allows people to choose. And when we have that choice, we simply connect more. And learning's about that connection with the content, the connection with the peers and professors, teachers, instructors, everyone else. So it enables the connection to the content, and it affects everyone in a positive way. So even if you don't use it and you know that it's there, you have the sense of this tool being in your backpack that you can use. So even if they're not using it, they have a tool which gives them confidence. So I'm probably giving too long of an answer.
Yeah, and to add to that, George, you know, when we talked about, you know, listening to an MP3 because, you know, people are traveling, you know, I think about my sister who's gone back to nursing school. And so when she's in between picking up, you know, a daughter from dance or whatever, she can listen, you know, to that information and then even go back home and study it, you know, through the textbook. But that's a great example of, you know, that UDL model. It is for everybody. You think about my younger son who is a sophomore in high school. You know, when COVID happened and they were online, you know, the entire time, you know, just being able to listen just to some of his studies, just to break up that monotony of, you know, that online learning all day long is very important. So again, you know, I think you made a great point. And again, you don't even have to think about just the traditional student, because what is a traditional student anymore? You know, we've got it across the board. So, you know, those are all great points.
And can I add to that just a touch? Because you brought up something that the kid, because most of our students are non-traditional at Los Angeles, LAPU. And what that does is that allows us to have a better work-life balance, because if you're taking your son, like we used to go to soccer all the time, or gymnastics or whatever, we're totally involved with our kids. But there's those moments when, okay, now they're with the coach or whatever, so you don't have to sacrifice your time there. You can just now pop in your headsets and listen to that while she are just doing their gymnastics, doing their soccer or whatever. And you don't, so it allows you to be engaged and be present in the moment when it counts. So I think that's cool. So
yeah, and I think again, there's been such a label put on accessibility tools in the past. That it's only for a certain group of people that have, you know, these accommodation needs, but really it goes so far beyond that now. And I think that the definition needs to change. It needs to, you know, and when we think about, you know, we're gonna, Ginger and I are doing a webinar later on next month about, you know, that move away from disability services to access centers. And when you think about that, when you use the term access center, it's so much more encompassing and broad and you know, inclusive. So I really think that you know, those tools certainly are for everyone.
because language matters, right?
And
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I want to add in one other thing is with this ever-changing learning landscape that we're in, who knows if we will be online or hybrid or face-to-face or a combination thereof. This gives everyone those same tools that we call accessibility tools are also tools that help you focus. And by building that focus, you don't have as much screen burnout. And that's what we're talking about, that mislabeling of accessibility, because accessibility and accommodations are there, but it also is for the student who doesn't qualify for those, and it's giving them those same tools. An example might be that enlarged text. You think that's for low vision students, but it's also for students who flatly just don't get a subject. For instance, I didn't get psychology, sorry, George, but psychology wasn't something I understood when I was in college. And if I had had ReadSpeaker, I would have been able to use that enlarged text to get those granular pieces that I missed when I was reading. And that made psychology very difficult, because if you don't pick up those granular pieces, then you're lost. And that would be an example of how you could use a tool that was maybe created for one group of people, but use it in another manner, even though you don't qualify for accessibility. And I would like to make a comment before I move on to the next question. I was looking at who all is attending. And in those that said hello, we have 3 from the United States, and we have Ireland, Central America, Argentina, Italy, Mexico, France, Portugal, Colombia, Czech Republic, Portugal, Canada, Jordan. Oh, well, there's Oregon and Chicago, and I'm from South Carolina. Trinidad, Tobago, sorry about that. Italy, and Oman, Spain, the Netherlands. This particular session is worldwide, but yet we're using language. And with that, some who don't understand English may be using a translator right now for us. So as George, you were saying, language is contextual. This could be going on right now. Anything
and Tina,
else?
hello, Italy. That is where my son is headed first to meet his ship. So that's awesome that somebody's here from Italy.
Nice.
I think we're going to move on to our last question for the discussion, and it's more for Dawn at Moodle. And Ginger, you don't really necessarily have to share your screen. If you can just kind of, I don't have the deck pulled up, but you know, it's you know, we really want to, you know, again, I'm assuming everybody here is either a Moodle user or looking at Moodle as their preferred LMS, and so. You know, we did want to give Dawn at Moodle a chance to really talk about, you know, Moodle's perspective in terms of that accessibility, you know, thinking about text to speech, why that's an important feature for, you know, an institution to think about, but of course, you know, accessibility in general in terms of an LMS and how an LMS integrates those accessibility tools, why that's important for someone who is looking at an LMS or uses an LMS, getting those accessibility tools for their faculty and staff, faculty and students to be able to utilize through that.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, thinking about this question, you know, there's definitely the topics that have already been discussed. The fact that, you know, assistive technology is essential for some, and it has the potential to be good for all, you know, level the learning playing field. And you know, Moodle wants to be able to provide that learning environment that everybody can use. And so partnering with someone like ReadSpeaker, being able to bring in that text to speech feature not only levels the field, but it allows us to really provide the solution that everybody out there really, if they're not looking for it, they need to be looking for it. And I don't want to be the person here to kind of lay the heavy hand of ADA regulations, but it is, it is part of, our landscape. It's, if you're in a school, a college, a university, you really do have a legal obligation to comply with ADA regulations and standards. And this extends to our digital learning space. So we want to be able to provide, the solution to everybody so that they can not only meet that need, but really provide that level playing field. And, I really, just as we've been talking about this, it really kind of hit home to something that I'm doing myself. Didn't even really kind of put this together, but just learning a foreign language, being able to listen to that foreign language and read the text at the same time, really, you're really hitting. I've always been told you've got to put 3 wrinkles on your brain before you learn something, and there's 2 of them right there, just in one motion. So I think it's there's just a lot of reasons this just makes sense for Moodle. But I think talking to our team today, one of the metaphors that came up during our discussion is really kind of thinking as like a curb cut, how a curb cut is essential for some. Those who, use a wheelchair or, a stroller, it's essential for them to get from the street to the sidewalk, to be able to, travel. But we don't know how else it's going to be used, and you go out there and you look and you see, strollers being used, people using their bicycles or scooters or what have you. There's all kinds of different uses for those curb cuts. And I kind of feel this is the same, it's the same thing. It's just, there's so many different ways we can use text to speech, and we want to provide, all the tools that our learners need to be able to teach and lead in the classroom. So that's it from my perspective.
Well, I appreciate those are, again, very valid points. And Don, it does make you think, how this touches so many people in so many different ways, things that you just wouldn't think of right off the bat. If you were on a game show right now and they said, name the top 5 things, and they may not come to you right at that point, but as you start talking to other people and how they utilize these tools and that sort of thing, it kind of makes you think outside of the normal box, as we would say. And Ginger's going to kind of jump into a quick demo of how ReadSpeaker works with Moodle. So, as you kind of see these tools in action, again, it's going to be a quick demo. Ask questions in the chat, ask questions in the Q&A. That's what we're here for. Ask George some questions about, how, again, his institution, does the accessibility. If you've got any type of those questions, now's your chance to ask them. Also, I know that we're doing education focused. Ginger and I are the education team in terms of that. But, ReadSpeaker also works, across the board, corporate, government, all that kind of stuff. It's not just limited to education. So I don't want to alienate our audience here that might not be in education. So again, if you have questions, regarding, things outside of that education space, if we can't answer it, we'll get you the answer to it. So, I'm going to hand it to Ginger, let her do some demo. And again, feel free to ask questions. That's what we're here for.
Okay, can everyone see my screen? All right, first off, you have the listen button, and the listen button has a lot of things that you can do besides just listen. You can, if you want to,
Ginger, it's your
desktop
right now.
Yeah, Ginger, we're just seeing your desktop right now.
Yeah, sorry.
Oops, sorry about that. Let's try this again. Now, are you seeing Harry Potter?
No.
Oh, no.
Yep, now I am.
Yep.
Okay.
There we go.
There is a delay. I am on the wonderful satellite system, which has very narrow bandwidth. Kathy sitting outside Starbucks probably has more bandwidth than one I have at home. First off, as I was saying, I can click listen and listen to the whole page, but because I'm on satellite, I am only going to highlight just a little bit and click listen, and we will hear it play the information to us.
J.K. Rowling wrote the Harry Potter
All
series
right,
of
I'm going to
books.
do it again because
J.K. Rowling wrote the Harry Potter series of
the
books.
audio and the video may not be together on your screen, but it is on mine. And it did have a little bloop there with the satellite. But here's what I want to point out that is a big feature. Everyone thinks that you have a set settings and you can't change it because that's how it is in so many tools. But in ours, you customize this to you. For instance, I like a blue word and a yellow sentence. If I was colorblind, I might like some underlining. We were talking about speeding things up or slowing them down. Here's where you would change your reading speed, depending on if you need to slow it down for second language learners or speed it up for those going into an occupation that information is going to come at them fast. We can change up our text view to the size font we want, the font itself. We do offer the open dyslexic font for those that want to use it. It's not good for everybody, but we believe in choice. So we put it out there so that if you are dyslexic and you choose to use it, you can. Then the color background, you can choose. We have yellow on black, which is great for dyslexic students because it has a high contrast. I'm going to use black on pink. Text spacing allows me to change how much space, let me get some words up here so that you can see it a little bit better, is between the letters themselves. So you can adjust that to what is comfortable to you. Now, if I look at the same page in text mode, we now see it in a less distracted version. So we're able to cut out those things that might be distracting to us. Anytime we have a text block, we can make these changes on the fly. You can highlight a sentence and have the sentence played, or you can hit play and listen to the whole thing. Another tool that's beneficial, as I mentioned before, is enlarge text. We toggle it on, and I'm going to take this first line. And notice that little pop-up allows me not to have to travel across the screen to hit listen, but I can choose it there.
Students playing Quidditch enjoy the sport
All
and
right,
get
we see it one size. I can make this much larger. You see, I can take it up quite large. I can also bring it back down. And this is what I was talking about, getting granular on the page so you can pick up those details. It's not just for students who have ADD or ADHD or have low vision. It's for everyone. And I'll let it play for just a moment.
to exercise, which helps to
Now,
burn
I
off
stopped
stress.
it. But if I go back here, it's still on. I do need to toggle it off. If I don't like the voice that I am using, I can choose the other male or female, or if you have multiple languages, you could choose the language that matches your document in male or female. I'm going to choose American English Australia, male 1. And let's listen to this much.
Now it is not only a common word in many households, but Quidditch games are now played on many
So you
campuses.
can hear, you have different voices you can use. And some students latch onto one voice or another voice, or they prefer to take a different voice for a different course. you have a tool for a paper textbook called cutting a hole in a sheet of paper and moving it up and down. We have the electronic version. You can make it larger or smaller and just pull it up and down on your document. If you did not know what quidditch meant, you could look it up in a dictionary. And this is just telling me that it's using an online dictionary, and the one we use is called Wiktionary. And this is kind of big for me, so I'm going to pull it back down to normal. And now I can see how quickly I can make that change, or I can pump it up. I can play this. Now I know that we do have someone from the Netherlands, and I'm going to ask whoever it was from the Netherlands to help me out here, because I'm going to translate an entire sentence, which we know it's going to go word by word, into Dutch. This is just saying I'm using Google Translate, and we're going to listen to it.
Zwerkbal is een spel dat gespeeld wordt op bezemstelen.
Okay, who was it that said they were from the Netherlands? Did that sound correct to you, or were their words misplaced? Gima? Okay. The first word should probably be translated differently. And when I was looking at it, I translated several things. And if I'm right, this last word translates as broomsticks. And is this word the first word Quidditch? Is that which word would be Quidditch? That's the word. Okay, so you can see if we looked at that in Dutch and we speak English, we would have a little bit of trouble identifying the words there, but we heard it in a Dutch voice. Now,
Ginger, we have just a few questions if we can take just a second.
Sure.
Gemma had asked, how is ReadSpeaker handling H5P content in Moodle?
Oh, H5P, you ask a tough question. We have been working with H5P, and I don't know if we are totally through the process of getting all the kinks out, but I do know that what we do is we use the CSS form in the back end to handle that.
Okay. DW Wood says, can you address how ReadSpeaker is integrated into Moodle? Meaning, once installed, does it provide ReadSpeaker across all courses in Moodle, or can you restrict it to specific courses?
Okay, first off, it is across all courses or specific courses. It is your choice. ReadSpeaker goes in as a block. And with the block, you have the choice of letting instructors turn it on in their course or turning it on across all content pages. And with content pages, the block used to sit over here on the left and you would click on listen, but now it floats in the content because in Moodle's latest versions, we have, let's see, it's over in a drawer off screen where you would find the third-party integration. So what we did is we created a way for it to float within the content. I also see someone asking about French translation, and I'm going to do this and I will show you, yes, I do have French, and we can look at that French translation and listen to it.
Le Quidditch est un jeu qui se joue sur des balais.
And how did that do, Catherine? Was the French pretty close? Okay.
And just
Now,
Ginger, I think this would be a great point to also add, and I'm sorry if you had addressed it earlier in the webinar, but we create these voices ourselves in terms of we have an internal linguistics team that these voices are created. And so we own the entire process. So if something needs to be customized or if something needs to be fixed, it's not a long drawn out process because we own the process. So again, you know, those are things can be fixed even at an institution level. So say you have an acronym that is used a lot for your institution or company, and you want it every time the acronym is shown to actually the whole words sounded out, we can do that. So again, that customization is very key when you think about the needs for, you know, different languages and that sort of thing.
exactly. I'll give you another instance. We have a college that is very close to the US-Canadian line, but it's on the US side. They have a French president. When the English voice was pronouncing the French president's name, it didn't do it very well. So we went in and fixed it so it was pronouncing his name correctly with the correct French accents everywhere it hit it, but using the English voice itself to pronounce those. So it wasn't changing to another language. It was just using our voice and pronouncing it correctly. So we put that in their dictionary. Another question that comes up about the dictionary is medical terms. Most medical terms for a bachelor or an associate's degree in nursing, medical terminology, courses like that, anatomy, physiology, all of those, we already have pre-programmed because we've worked with so many customers that have those needs that we put that in the regular dictionary instead of having to customize it for everyone. Other questions on that? And did I get everything about the implementation of it?
You know, the only other thing is, can the plugin read Spanish language? And the answer is yes.
Yes, it can. When you are looking at the translation languages, you see this. When I am looking at the reading languages, whoops, hang on. Reading languages, you can see that I have quite a number, Spanish and US Spanish that we have. One is the traditional Spanish and the other one is more like the Mexican Spanish that we use in the US. So we do have a wide array, and this is by no means all of them, but these are the ones that we typically end up demoing in. So those are the ones that are loaded into my environment. As we said before, we have over 50 languages and over 200 plus voices within those 50 plus languages. Now, I want to look at a document, and I have opened this document in Doc Reader, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, but I do want to show you some cool things. First off, we can move up and down pages here. We can change pages there, or we can change pages with our left right. We can change pages by clicking on a particular page, or, and it may take a moment here, these are thumbnails that will be coming up here in a moment. I could click on a thumbnail. The idea behind accessibility is if you have programmed in, as in using the heading notations off of your Word document before you made it into a PDF, or you did it in your PDF tagging, then the student will see those headings here and they don't have to play guess which page the information is that I want. I can click on it immediately. Once I've done that, I can get rid of it. Now, most of these things are pretty obvious what they're saying, but I do want to show you some cool settings that we have. First off, we can turn the page automatically by selecting right here. Yes, turn the page automatically. And what that does is as soon as it gets to the end of the page with reading, it automatically turns the next page. This is a brand new setting, and it's important for students to see because most people don't click on this. Let me close that, where it says expand toolbar. They don't think about it. And what this does, it says, remember where it was. If I had it expanded, keep it expanded every time. Well, you can't get to settings without expanding it, so it's going to remember it expanded. Now, the pop-up menu, we want it to close automatically because we don't want our listen button sitting over the top of a word. We can choose our sentence and our word color. I like to use a blue word. And in this, I'll choose an underline. You notice I've got the same settings here and the spacings that we had before. And I'm going to play the first line here.
During audio playback, you will always see a pop-up control panel at the bottom.
And I think I had it reversed of which one I wanted. I always get those backwards. But the power tool here is highlighters. And that's because students need to take notes. So in taking notes, we want to turn on our highlighter and turn on our borders, because if we're doing this as an instructor, say the first document you have them read during a semester, you want to teach them how to take notes. So turn on your borders when you do that. And then whatever you see that is important, highlight it. And notice I can highlight and always highlight a complete sentence. That's so when things get cold, you can very quickly go back. And if you notice, yellow was an underline, blue is dashes, green is dots, and red is a solid color. Now, once you have done that, you can collect and download those highlights. And it says, how do I want to do this? Do I want the whole document or only the current page? Color or position? Now, if you're the instructor doing this, you want to do position because the students aren't going to have those highlights and they're going to be looking for them. So having them in position helps them find it. And then whether or not you want to show the colors and the borders. If you don't want to show some, you can uncheck them. Or if you want to show everything, check everything. Say collect and download. And I will put this on my desktop. I'm going to give it a name, learner_support. I didn't look at the name of this, but we're going to call it that. And when I open it, here is my document. Notice it is in complete sentences. The other thing is I did not say position, so it went blue, green, red, yellow, alphabetically for the colors. Up here, this date and time that you see, notice it says BST, because that is where the process actually takes place for that. So it's giving you what time it was done there. In my URL, I know it's very little, but it has learner_support. That way the student would know what document he or she was looking at. And with that, I want to specify or stress rather, please tell students to put an underscore between words. Some browsers and operating systems will put a %20 for a space. And when you do that, and then they look for it, they get confused. So if they use the underscore between words, then they're much better at it. Now, the other things, like I said, are self-explanatory. You can change voices over here. Your voice should always match your language that's on the document. Now, right here, I have a listen button, and I'm going to highlight this question and choices.
Duck Reader.
Well, that was nice. Let's try that again.
Duck Reader.
Okay, they just updated a couple of things, and I'm gonna guess I've got something going a little wacky there. Let's see if I leave Doc Reader off, if it will read the rest for me.
Will read Word, Excel, and PowerPoint files. Select one. True. False.
And that is true, but we're not limited to those. We also read Google Docs, plain text, rich text, and EPUBs. Kathy, at this point, I've gone over most of the things that I wanted to show in the demo. Do we have other questions, or are there questions at this point that you maybe haven't posted?
You just answered the one that was in Q&A, which was, can ReadSpeaker read a Google Doc embedded in Moodle?
Yes. We can read that, and go ahead.
Nope, I was just going to say, if you don't mind sharing that contact information for both. I think
yes.
And Donna, I apologize, I think I had Kelly's information on it on our last slide, for contact at Moodle, but I think that should be fine. I know we're at time. This is, again, I know we've crammed a lot of information in this time, but I hope it gave you a good overview of just some of the ways that ReadSpeaker works inside of Moodle and what can it do in terms of accessibility for your faculty and students and or company and employees. But again, if you've got any questions, I think we've just got just a few more minutes. Otherwise, my contact information is up on the screen. Our education page, we have a page dedicated just to our Moodle integration. You can see the website there, also Moodle's website. So again, we offer a free sandbox environment. So if you want to kind of kick the tires in your with your own materials, we do offer that. All you need to do is just email me and I can get you set up with that. Again, we believe in being able to kick the tires, see how it works with your materials. So feel free to reach out. But do look at that website. There's lots of videos, there's case studies, there's all kind of information. Also on our main readspeaker.com site, you can listen to the different voices. You can kind of select which voice you want to hear, and you can hear snippets of that voice. So again, we believe in having relatable human-like voices. We're always improving that process. And so again, we're here to answer any questions and help you on that accessibility journey.
And I just put my information in the Q&A. If you want to reach out to me, I am the Educational Development Manager, which basically means I do training. And I not only train and onboard you at the very beginning, but I carry you all the way through the life of your contract. So, it's one of those things. It's not just an initial something. We're with you the whole time frame, and our support is free.
Ginger, make sure that in the chat you put it to everybody. I think it might have just gone to the host and panelists. So just make sure that you select everyone. But again, I really want to thank everyone for their time. Again, this is, okay, is ReadSpeaker going to be included as a core plugin in a future version? I don't know if that's a Dawn question or if that's a future, in terms of, development, but in terms of ReadSpeaker, that isn't, if you're talking about natively installed as just a switch, I think that's a future conversation between ReadSpeaker and Moodle.
And Dawn, I think you did the same thing I did. So I'm moving your information over to everyone.
Oh, thank you, Ginger. And yes, Kathy, I think that's, or Kelly, excuse me, or no, Kathy, I'm getting confused. I think that is something something for the future as Moodle grows and becomes a more comprehensive solution. We're always looking for features that really provide what the market's looking for. So you never know what can happen with ReadSpeaker and Moodle in the future.
Yep. All right. Well, again, thank you, everyone. Again, I encourage you, check out the websites, get as much information. It's always important, in terms of making a very informed and educated decision. And really, okay, we have one other question. Are you able to give an average cost? Unfortunately, Ginger and I are not the salespeople in terms of ReadSpeaker. That would be Paul Sisser, but it's basically typically based on FTE. And so that would be something very quickly, if you were to send that kind of information to us, we could get Paul to give you kind of an estimated cost. It would just take just a few minutes for him to be able to do that.
And one thing I would like to reiterate, Kathy, that you said earlier, and that was Moodle is used everywhere from K-12 through college, through corporate. And because of that, so many of the tools are the same. And just because we talked about it more in the college realm doesn't mean that these same tools don't apply to everyone, because they do.
Thanks, Ginger. All right, this time we're really signing off. I really appreciate everybody being so flexible in this awesome virtual world that we live in, that we can sit in the Starbucks parking lot and do a webinar. That's awesome. So thank you, everyone. George, thank you so much. You just added such a great perspective to the webinar, and I look forward to maybe working with you a little bit more, getting more of your feedback for future webinars, because I think you are a awesome asset for other peers to hear from, to learn from. I really think that that's one of the best ways that institutions and companies can get better, is to hear how their peers have done it. And so thank you. And Dawn, thank you for getting this all together. Ginger, thank you for your expertise, and everyone have a great evening, afternoon, morning, whatever it is, wherever you are. I hope you have a great one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Ginger. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.